Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves, Katie Wilson takes a victory lap on safety during the World Cup, but then refuses to do anything to keep Seattle safe. Plus, Democrats admit there's voter fraud, but then claim, you know what? Not such a big deal. But before we get to any of that, my friends, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
It's much easier to blame somebody than to build something. There are 2 times in my life where I was really, really depressed, where I felt like I had tried super, super hard and failed. First time was right after leaving college. Leave college with my not quite a degree in theater and business, and I can't get any jobs. It's not because I was a credit short of graduating, but it was because everybody wanted experience. And you come out of college and go, but I took all the classes to do this. Where's my job? I was promised if I went to college and I did all the things, I would get a job. I just got married. I was out there looking for a job, figured this would be easy. I had my part-time jobs that were keeping us afloat, but my part-time jobs were like youth director and water skiing instructor. And things like that don't really pay the bills. I was expecting, okay, I'm graduating. It should be real easy to get a job. Guess what? Not that many people were hiring a theater kid who had some business know-how. They just weren't. And I was going to interview after interview, riding the subways in New York, spending money. No jobs. And I could have said, I was wronged. The system wronged me. And instead, you know what I did? I said, well, I like real estate. I could take a 2-week class. I could get certified as a real estate broker. And I could go start working as a real estate broker at this company where they are hiring. And that's exactly what I did. I could have sat around blaming everybody, could have blamed the system. But instead I said, you know what? Nobody wants this. Maybe they'll want this. So a commission-based job, okay, it's a job. And that was how I got into real estate, and that was my first job. Second time, during COVID, I had 2 very successful companies, one in real estate, one in event rentals, which I called inflatable real estate, where we delivered bounce houses and smiles to kids all over the Puget Sound, and we had the big festivals. The problem was that there were no events, there were no festivals, and that was absolutely killing my company. My other one with real estate, we were still doing property management, but not as many people wanted strangers in their home to do construction and stuff, and things were getting very, very hard. So, in addition to that, a lot of people couldn't work. And because they couldn't work, they didn't have the money for projects, and things were getting very, very hard. And I could have said, the system wronged me. I did everything right, and the system wronged me. This is what I'm owed. But instead, I said, I'm going to take all that frustration. I'm going to take all that anger, and I'm going to challenge it into destroying the people who destroyed my companies. I think it was Todd Herman who said the biggest mistake Jay Inslee ever made was shutting down Ari Hoffman's companies. Because then I pivoted into media. I was lucky enough to have a few political connections. I was lucky enough that I had been involved and been on KVI many times before as a guest of Kirby Wilbur. Kirby Wilbur, even when I ran for office, put my sign in the window of his studio over at Como Plaza, and it was facing the light rail. Not sure how many visitors on the light rail saw my campaign sign, but that was Kirby. And when I heard the job was coming available, I go, this is an opportunity to pivot. And I worked hard, and I tried my best, got the resume, got the job. I could have sat around going, this is who's to blame. This is what I'm owed. I did everything right. And I would have been right. Because Jay Inslee and the Democrats destroyed my companies. They gave grants to anybody who's a certain kind of minority, but not anybody whose business they destroyed. The federal government had all these grants, all these helps, all these loans, not for the entertainment industry. If you notice, your favorite laser tag place you used to take your kids or go-karting place, a lot of them closed during COVID because everybody forgot about the entertainment industry. It may be fun, but people still rely on that for their business. And mine was destroyed. And I could have sat around going, this is who's to blame. This is who's to blame. But instead, I said, I'm going to figure it out. And I figured it out. And it wasn't easy. I have 3 kids in private school. I have a wife. I have a mortgage. And things were not looking too great for a little while there. Pretty scary. Would have been real easy to sit around saying, here's who's to blame. The system wronged me. And I would have been right. There's a quote that my father-in-law loves to attribute to Aristotle. I doubt Aristotle actually said it. He said, everybody needs 3 things: air in their lungs, water, food to drink, and somebody to blame. Now, I don't think Aristotle talked that way. I don't think Aristotle actually said that, but that's who gets the quote. So we'll give it to Aristotle. And that is the people who are voting for, supporting for communism, socialism in the U.S. I was wronged. This is due to me. When you decide you want to go to college, you normally say, here's what I want to major in. I've chosen my major. Here's the major I've chosen. How many kids actually say, well, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an accountant? I have a lot of friends in the theater who are now lawyers or doctors or accountants because guess what? Being a starving actor doesn't pay the bills, and they ended up in these other fields because, hey, we need real jobs. You go thinking I'm going to have fun in college. It's going to be like what I saw in the movies with fraternities, with sororities. And unfortunately, what is happening to a lot of Americans is they're choosing these degrees that get them absolutely nothing, cost a lot of money, and leave them in debt. The system wronged me. I was promised if I went to college and majored in lesbian dance theory and underwater basket weaving, that I'd have a piece of the American dream and I'd be successful. We have destroyed so many kids because we told them, you don't want the blue-collar job. You don't want the blue-collar job. You want to be somebody who goes to college. And if you go to college, you're going to make more money. You're going to be more successful. That's how you get a piece of the American dream. And we don't have enough plumbers, and we don't have enough electricians, and we don't have enough mechanics. And so many kids who are better at working with their hands or have other skills got forced to sit through DEI classes and whatever core curriculum nonsense had nothing to do with their major and put themselves into debt to get that way. The people who did that are the ones who are voting for Mamdani. The ones who did that are the ones who are voting for socialists, who are voting for communists, because they need somebody to blame. They think they are owed something, and those rich people better give it to them. The people who went into the trades, they are not the ones who are voting for that. And this is all according to the most recent polling data we have. They are not. First of all, they're too busy. They are too busy to join the revolution. They are too busy to join the resistance. Why? Because they have jobs, because they have lives, because they have companies to run, because they have plumbing to fix and electrical wiring to do, and because they have cars to repair. They don't have time to join the revolution, and they're too busy being taxed to death by the people who say we need to fund the revolution. So, Mamdani and his crew have figured out a new game. Let's blame certain groups to distract from the fact that we can't keep our promises. A video went viral last night from Zoran Mamdani. What has Zoran Mamdani been promising? Free buses for everybody. Yeah, he had to admit he couldn't do that. Why couldn't he do that? Couldn't do that because city can't afford it. And for anybody who's ever lived in New York, you know that the MTA, that's the transit system, is always talking about how they are out of money, how they're operating at a loss, and how they need the government to bail them out. So they can't give up the revenue from the fares. And Mamdani's budget couldn't afford it because they were spending money on other stupid things. All right, let's build those grocery stores now. Let's do it. Yeah, they have to drop $30-40 million on one grocery store, a grocery store that would cost the private industry somewhere around $7 million to actually set up as an initial investment. This thing will close. In addition to that, you open it up in a neighborhood which already has supermarkets, which already has corner stores, which already has bodegas. Now that there's this free place around the corner, what's it going to do to their businesses? It's going to get destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. So it's going to destroy nearby businesses. And the left is going to say, well, if they could stay in business against competition that's free, they're just bad business owners. Mamdani promised to freeze the rent. We're going to tax people. We're going to have this pied-à-terre tax where we go after the rich people. People have $200 million apartments, and it's going to fund everything for you. That's going to make sure you get a house. Well, that's not really working the way it is, and the rents have gone up in New York City because landlords said if you're freezing the rent, we're going to max it out as high as we possibly can right now because we don't know if we're going to be able to do increases later. And meanwhile, you're going to be hitting us with property tax increases, and we still have to pay maintenance on these apartments to fix the things that you people break. So now it's, who can we blame instead? Let's distract. Let's blame somebody else. And Mamdani says, let's blame the Jews. Let's do a whole video blaming the Jews. So Mamdani has been promising, since he was campaigning, that he was going to arrest Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu if he ever came to New York. And immediately, anybody who knows anything about the law says, yeah, you have no authority to do that. Number one, the U.S., even though Netanyahu and others have been charged by the International Criminal Court, which is a sham. You don't see them charging anybody in Iran. You don't see them charging anybody in China. You don't see them charging anybody. China literally has concentration camps right now. You don't see them charging anybody in China, do you? No, it's a sham. It's run by a bunch of people who hate Israel, so they charge Bibi Netanyahu. They're not going after Hamas. They're not going after Hezbollah. They're not going after the Houthi rebels, but they're charging Netanyahu. Okay. So Mamdani says he's going to arrest him. You don't have the authority to do so because the U.S. is not under the ICC's jurisdiction. Israel's not under the ICC's jurisdiction. Number two, you are a mayor of a city. That is not in your jurisdiction. That is not your job. Number three, how are you actually going to do it when we have things like diplomatic immunity? Plus, how are you going to do it when Bibi Netanyahu, number one, was a former special forces operator. He may be old, but I bet you he could take Mamdani in a fight. And number two, have you seen his security forces? They are way tougher than the NYPD. Sorry, guys. That's just the way it is. Maybe you have some SWAT teams on the NYPD, but the average NYPD officer, way tougher. How are you actually going to do this? It was a distraction, and he could never keep that promise. So he does a whole video yesterday about how I want to do it, but I can't actually do it, which is basically just another Mamdani broken promise. It's basically all it is. And he's trying to virtue signal to his own base because his own base is saying, wait a minute, you're not keeping your promises. Where's our free buses? Where's our free transportation? Where's our free apartments? Where's our free grocery store? He's not delivering on anything he promised. So it's time to blame somebody, and the Jews are an easy scapegoat. What did he say in this video that went viral overnight last night?
Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal, the architect of a horrific genocide against the Palestinian people.
Okay, let's just stop right there. Did they go out looking for war in Israel? No, they were attacked on October 7th. 1,200 people were killed, rapes, kidnappings, murders, torture, executions. But sure, let's blame Israel. You going to mention Hamas at any point here?
He is responsible for the killing of more than 73,000 people.
Stop. If that number is the one you're using, even Hamas says that number includes their terrorists. So now you are mourning terrorists. Oh, by the way, the majority of them are terrorists, like 60,000 of them are terrorists. But sure, let's go with those numbers for a second. So now you're mourning terrorists, no different than Pramila Jayapal mourning the 9/11 hijackers in one of her 9/11 posts.
For the maiming of tens of thousands of children, as those who survive undergo amputation without anesthesia.
What are the children doing in an active war zone? Are they being used as human shields? Yeah, I think so. Why do they have rockets being launched out of schools? Whose fault is that? Oh, yeah, right. Again, Hamas.
For the targeting of neonatal hospitals and maternity care centers.
You mean the hospitals where they inject air into people's veins to torture them like they did with some of the hostages and killed them? Those kind of hospitals? The ones where they were holding the hostages? Those kind of hospitals? Those don't sound like hospitals to me.
Denying newborns even the chance to live. For the countless people he starved as he blocked food and humanitarian aid from reaching them.
Okay, this has all been debunked already. The aid was there. Hamas stole it. You going to blame them at any point? You going to arrest anybody from Hamas?
For the gunning down of hundreds of aid workers and journalists.
Okay, that didn't happen. Journalists, you call them journalists? We call them terrorists. They weren't journalists. They weren't aid workers. They were terrorists.
And just last month, the UN confirmed that Palestinian children continue to be deliberately targeted and killed.
That is not true, but sure, let's go with it. Let's just distract from the fact that he can't accomplish anything and instead blame the Jews. Does this sound familiar in history? The economy's not looking so good in Germany. Who can we blame for this? Pat says over on the text line, maybe the guy with the bad haircut and the odd mustache who blamed the Jews to usher in a certain type of government? Yeah, this is usually the case. Find somebody to blame. That's exactly what they're doing. Exactly what he's doing. What does this mayor of New York have anything to do with the foreign relations of the U.S. government? Absolutely nothing. But he needs a distraction from the fact of how bad his policies are, and he can't deliver on any of his promises. So he pivots over to what he knows best, which is hating the Jews, supporting Hamas. That's what he knows best. Zoran Mamdani is one of those people who feel they are owed something by the world. Zoran Mamdani, who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, to a very successful Hollywood documentary filmmaker who's worth $1 gajillion, and a college professor father who spews this garbage. Born in Uganda, lived in a mansion, came to the U.S., was given every opportunity, and decided to start a rap career, which he failed at. Went to a college he didn't deserve to get into, and started a rap career, which he failed at, and then somehow got elected mayor of New York. He cannot deliver on his promises, so he needs somebody to blame. The Democrats are trying to pass this off as, the kids are a little restless. They don't really mean what they're saying when they say globalize the intifada or from the river to the sea or all these other awful things about the Jews. They don't actually mean it. Jon Stewart, literally running cover for them the other day on an interview.
And now, and we're in that same bullshit place now where all these new ideas, suddenly the Democrats are, these democratic socialists, they're crazy. And you're like, well, but that, generally their crazy ideas aren't where the energy is. The energy isn't around like, we shouldn't have prisons or borders. The energy...
Hang on. The energy isn't around that? How many protests have we seen against the police? How many protests have we seen against ICE? That's where all the energy is, John.
Is around a belief that they're economic populism. And when you call it socialism, I think it's a misnomer. Like in the same way that if you call Social Security socialism.
Oh, stop. The problem is the experiment has escaped the lab. These campaigns by these socialists have become all about their insane positions, hating America, hating Jews, hating white people, hating anybody who's different than them. If you're different than them, you're a Nazi, you're a fascist, you're an extremist, hating ICE, hating the police, hating the U.S. government, hating the military. And you can't sign on to that as a Democrat. So because you don't want to condone that, you say, the kids, they're just restless. They don't mean any of that. They're just being extreme to try and get votes. You know how it works in an election? In the primary, you get extreme to try and solidify your base to pick you. In the general, you moderate to try and get people from the other side. These guys are getting more extreme because they feel emboldened. That's how you get the whole DSA platform filled with crazy. With abolish the Senate, abolish the presidency, abolish the borders, abolish ICE, get rid of all of it. The experiment has escaped the lab. And now the Democrats don't know what to do because now their experiment is coming for them. They're coming for them and trying to remove Chuck Schumer from power and Hakeem Jeffries from power and even people as extreme as AOC. Mamdani and all his little minions are looking to tear down the United States of America. And they found the Democrat Party as a vessel, as a mask to use to infiltrate the country. And it's working because you got people like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and the rest of them caving to their demands. Elizabeth Warren can't endorse that guy in Michigan who's a terrorist supporter fast enough. Before that, she was endorsing the guy with the Nazi tattoo. This is the direction they're going in. And this is what the DSA is all about. Moderate Democrats don't believe in all this. But now you have regular Democrats running cover because they didn't realize what they signed up for. And you could have seen this coming a mile away. At the end of the day, it's not because of the Jews or Israel or Gaza or Palestine or anything else they blame it on. It's because they can't deliver on their promises, so let's blame somebody. Oh, and if we happen to, take out Israel at the same time, we'll do it. They want to mobilize that disenfranchised class as their voters. They want to mobilize them rather than saying, here's how we're going to fix the economy. They don't have any ideas of their own. If you notice, it's all steal from somebody else and give it to us. It's all let's destroy this, which is why you might actually be seeing the polls moving in a different direction for the midterms. I'm actually starting to get cautiously optimistic about the midterms, that because the Democrats, the DSA wearing the Democrats as a skin suit have gone so crazy, the GOP might actually pull out a victory. Are you seeing the same thing I am? Or do you think I'm absolutely deranged and that's never going to happen and the GOP is going to get its butt whooped? Because our phone lines are still down, you can text me with your answer, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And speaking of deranged leftists, Katie Wilson took a victory lap on the World Cup, talking about public safety. So why'd you turn the cameras off? Give you all the details up next. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Seattle Socialist Mayor Katie Wilson put an op-ed in the Seattle Times. The headline is, Seattle, the World Cup brought possibility. Let's build on it. Very nice sentiment. Love the sentiment. So does that mean you're going to hire more cops? Because we just had a whole bunch of them retire and quit and transfer. You're going to get more cops? How about you keep all the cameras on so we can find those criminals? You going to work with federal partners because you guys are working with federal partners during all that for public safety? You going to get the homeless out of Seattle? You going to get them out of here, or are you just going to leave them on the streets? Because I see the reversion happening in real time. Mayor Fivehead writes, I've never felt prouder of our city, and there's much we can learn from this success. This is what it looks like when government delivers. From transportation to event logistics to public safety, city departments, hang on. You got an influx of cash from the feds. You got an influx of cash from the World Cup, from the FIFA people. And you got an influx of federal agents. Why do you think you saw so many ICE raids happening on the freeways while the World Cup was going on? So if you want to take this victory lap, it wasn't all local. There were a lot of federal partners involved. So does that mean you're going to start working with ICE in the future? Does that mean you're going to start working with the FBI in the future? Does that mean you're going to start working with all those federal departments? She writes, it's time to discard the notion that Seattle is dying. The forces pushing that narrative never wanted Seattle to succeed. Do you know why people like me participate in that documentary? Do you know why people like me talk about Seattle is dying? Because we don't want to leave. Because we remember how it used to be. We remember how wonderful this place could be. And for a brief, shining moment, when we saw all the American flags everywhere, and the streets cleaned, and the bars filled with people, and the shops filled with customers, we remembered what Seattle could be like. And it was amazing. But that was a team effort. Aren't you guys the ones who are always saying it takes a village? That was a team effort. Seattle is now reverting back to the way it was. A friend of mine who's a contractor, he texted me earlier today. He's working on a house in Seattle. He's working on a house, and here's what he writes. Hey, Ari, we're working on a big remodel at, I'm not going to say where, had 2 break-ins in the past 2 weekends. Cops say they are powerless because our idiot socialist mayor shut down traffic cameras. Thieves stole all car keys and garage door opener on the first pass. They stole a Lexus in the driveway Sunday night, Monday morning. Batteries in the cars in the driveway were both dead, but these guys brought a battery and managed to get away with 1 car. This is what thieves returned 4:30 this morning, disabled a light, couldn't reach the other. Perhaps you can shame Mayor Fivehead. That's definitely somebody who listens to the show. These guys are working this house. He sent me pictures. The house has been completely ransacked. And you're going to say, oh, Ari, everywhere has crime. Yeah, but in other places, they do their best to combat it. Federal Way is on a victory lap right now because they have reduced crime so much. And the thing that helped the most, because they were the capital of car thefts, was Brian Haywood, Let's Go Washington, and all of you collected signatures to force the legislature to reinstitute police pursuits. Democrats said, you don't need police pursuits. We have cameras. We're going to install more cameras. Now they're shutting off the cameras. And how are you supposed to follow these guys when nobody's there at night? Let's be clear. Cameras, they don't really prevent crime. Sometimes a criminal may pick a softer target than one that has cameras. Therefore, afterwards, you can catch the criminals, throw them in jail, and make sure it never happens again. But unfortunately, here we have a revolving door justice system. Unless the person gets federal charges, they'll be out on the street. How do I know this? Local and federal law enforcement agencies, according to Como News, say they took 17 violent repeat offenders off the streets during the World Cup as part of Operation Red Card. Those arrested are facing a range of felony charges, including gun-related offenses, assault, robbery, extortion, and unlawful imprisonment. You mean kidnapping? Officials with the FBI, Seattle Police Department, and other agencies, meaning ICE and Homeland Security, said they had been preparing for the World Cup for years. Part of that planning involved identifying some of the area's most violent offenders and focusing on taking them into custody. Why weren't they in custody already? Why were they left on the streets? If you've been working on this for years and identifying these guys for years and they're prolific offenders, why were they on the streets in the first place? It's a nice sentiment the mayor has, and I don't want to crap all over it. I would love to go to the waterfront with my wife 6 weeks from now and have it look the way it did during the World Cup. But given what I see on my drive in every day and how it's already reverting, we know that just ain't going to happen. We're not broadcasting the Seattle is dying narrative because we want Seattle to fail. We're doing it because we want Seattle to be successful, and unless we call out the failings of Katie Wilson and the socialists, nothing's going to get better. Now that all the cameras have left, is anybody still paying attention? Tell you what I'm paying attention to, though, my friends. Democrats swiveling and pivoting so quickly to, yeah, there's voter fraud, but it's a small amount of voter fraud. Didn't 5 seconds ago they say there was no voter fraud whatsoever? We'll dive into the swamp when we come back and have that insane audio for you. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. seems like a lot of you agree with me about, at this point in the race, being cautiously optimistic about the midterms based on what they're seeing. Lee texted in, I'm cautiously optimistic as well with the GOP chances for November midterms. Dan says, Jedi Master Hoffman, I'm very cautiously optimistic that the asylum escapees have overestimated their popularity and electoral prospects. However, I am also staying frosty. Yes, Dan, exactly right. Stay frosty. This one here, Robert, says, you may be correct on the midterms. The DSA candidate in Arizona lost bigly. And in our state, the initiatives will be on the ballot. The commies have gone too far. Yes. Now, for those of you who want to call in, Kevin has figured out a workaround to our phone line while our phone company tries to figure out how to attach wires. And if you want to weigh in on the GOP's chances, you can give us a call on this new temporary number of 206-644-6006. That's 206-644-6006.
And as many longtime listeners will remember, this is not a new number.
No.
It was a temporary number that we had
when we moved
we moved into this building that somehow works now.
Yes.
Not the one that we've had since the 1970s.
Right, that one don't work no more. But look at that. They're calling. Look at that. You give out the number. Speak of the sun, you shall see its rays. Well, Democrats are in big trouble. Why are they in big trouble? Because Mickey Sherrill, the governor of New Jersey, admitted that Trump was right and illegal aliens are voting. But it's not such a big deal. It's not such a big... No. So wait a second. The thing they told us wasn't happening has now been happening. Okay, that's a bad look. And it's a really bad look when CNN's Jake Tapper is saying that's a bad look.
Mikey Sherrill, the governor of New Jersey, made this announcement today, a surprising announcement. Nearly 400 non-citizens voted in New Jersey elections as a result of what she calls a serious software error. Governor Sherrill posted this quote, as the Trump administration tries to weaponize elections for political gain, I am ensuring we protect our elections. She goes on to say the difference is simple. When we find a problem, we don't hide it, deny it, or invent conspiracies. We investigate it, we fix it, and we tell the public. I have to say, though, for Democrats, I'm not saying that the Save America, the SAVE Act is going to pass. Yeah. But this is not good for Democrats' argument that there's no such thing as undocumented immigrants voting.
This is not good for our country generally, I would say.
Even better.
And this is a terrible problem to have. I think she handled it correctly.
So wait, Trump's a liar. Let's not cover his press conference. Let's not talk about the illegals voting. Oh, wait. The Democrat governor of New Jersey just admitted it's actually happening. This is a real change from what Jake Tapper was saying just a couple days ago.
The Republicans here are talking about a solution to a non-existent problem. Again, Jake, to make it very clear, this country does not have a problem of election security in any measurable level, and certainly not based on people coming from other countries.
Right, it happens, but at very, very minuscule numbers. It's not a serious threat when it comes to election security.
I love that we can play those clips back to back. In fact, we can play a clip of every Democrat claiming there's no evidence that illegals, none whatsoever, not an issue. I think we got a montage for that.
You need a montage. Even Rocky had a montage.
There is no evidence that undocumented migrants vote.
We're debating a problem that does not exist.
This is a solution in search of a problem that does not exist.
The evidence is almost no illegal immigrants vote. Some benign effort to tell the small number of illegal immigrants.
The reports show voter fraud is exceedingly rare, but there's a couple things we know about the administration.
Citizen voting in federal elections is already illegal.
There is no evidence of fraud or corruption.
Oh, because we don't have a problem with illegal aliens voting in the country.
It's not an issue that you have undocumented people in mass numbers voting. You know.
Very, very rare instances, but then just make the bill workable. But
it is absolutely vanishingly rare.
There's no evidence that non-citizens are voting.
I think they think that it's already against the law for...
Are talking about a solution to a non-existent problem. Again,
foreigners do not vote in our elections. Maybe it's partly about the SAVE Slave Act, which is a ridiculous solution to a problem that does not exist. Foreigners do not vote in U.S. elections. That's the facts.
It's already illegal for non-citizens to vote in the United States. They face prosecution and jail time for doing it. The Save America Act attempts to solve a problem that does not exist.
Well, if the problem doesn't exist, then how come the problem exists? My favorite was one of the reporters from Lindell TV actually cornered our very own Representative Emily Randall, who's running for re-election in Washington, and her admitting that illegal aliens, yes, they actually were voting.
That's breaking news. Making sure.
I just saw that. Yeah, they disclosed it. They're going to fix it.
6,600
with laws that they have on the books.
Oh, there's Emily Randall.
Individuals didn't vote illegally.
That's not for certain. I mean, they're registered, so they could if they wanted to, right?
But there's an independent investigation that New Jersey has initiated, and so far the proof shows that a very, very, very small fraction voted illegally.
A very, very small fraction, but they voted illegally, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, for sure. Okay, that's a tell. That's a tell. You hear how her voice is going up, up, up every time she does that? That Valley Girl thing is a tell. It means that she's lying. That's an easy thing to track as this is happening.
I'd like to believe your theory on that, but there are plenty, especially people of a certain age, that just talk that way.
So funny you should mention it.
Time.
I'm not disagreeing with you. My daughter, while she's been on this summer program, is coming up with this awful New York Valley Girl accent from the people. It is. I'm going to have to deprogram that child. It's so bad it's coming out in her texts. Every other word in her text is like. So I went back and looked up clips of Emily Randall. That's not what she normally sounds like. That's the problem here. If I had him, I should have thought about this beforehand. Could have actually polled him for everybody. Up next, my friends, a major women's sports star comes out against boys playing on girls' teams. Are we about to see a change in the environment around here? Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I've been saying for a long time, until a major sports star says something about keeping boys out of girls' sports, nothing is going to change. Now, Sophie Cunningham is becoming a big sports star in women's sports, but also in pop culture. Sophie Cunningham, you may have seen who she is. She's the gal with all the memes of her pointing during a basketball game, calling out another player. Sophie Cunningham plays for the Indiana Fever. I had to look that up. LeBron James, you don't know who he plays for right now, but Sophie Cunningham had to look up who she actually plays for. She plays with Caitlin Clark over on the Indiana Fever. And what happened was she did an interview with ESPN. Buried 40 paragraphs down in this article, 40 paragraphs down, is the fact that she said boys shouldn't be in girls' sports. She said, I think that I'm here to extend love, but I also think that with love is truth, being honest. And I want to protect young girls in a locker room or young girls in a sport who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Now, she also added, I get a lot of negative feedback about me hating trans. And I'm like, I never once said that. She's right. She never said she hates trans. She said she wants girls to be protected in girls' spaces. She said, let's tell the truth. Now, she's very popular right now. She's the new it girl in popular culture and in the WNBA. Is that enough? I want to know where all the men are to say something. I want to know where people like LeBron James are to say something about this. As much as everybody's loving Sophie Cunningham right now, I don't think this is really going to move the needle that much, but everybody's grabbing onto this saying, yes, she's on our side because she's the new it girl. I will remind everybody that there is currently an initiative that's going to be in the November general election about keeping boys out of girls' sports. And to keep boys out of girls' sports, you have to vote yes to keep boys out of girls' sports on the initiative. You have to vote yes on all the initiatives to keep boys out of girls' sports, to make sure parents have rights, and to repeal the income tax. Do you think it's enough that Sophie Cunningham did this? Do you think this is going to open the floodgates? Or do you think too many of our celebrities and sports stars are too cowardly to say anything? I got to say, good on her for saying something. I'm not sure it's enough. We go to KVI studio line, take a call from Ron in Tacoma. Ron, what's going on?
Well, I have an opinion on the Sophie thing, but before I get to that, the reason I called was to say the midterms, I think there's a chance that things might work out, but we're the state of Washington. I don't think it affects here because in the state of Washington, you got Trump out here saying he wants to shrink the size of government. The Democrats are out here screaming no kings. The Democrats also come out and say government should be involved in every part of life, and then the Democrat voters say, I'm sold. So, I don't know where you go with that.
Well, Ron, we got a different problem. Hang on, Ron. We got a different problem. You know what our problem is? I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think we have a problem for a different reason. Have you looked at your ballot yet?
I didn't get a chance to yet.
Okay. When you look at your ballot, I want you to call me back, and I want you to tell me how many races are there that are uncontested. How many races are there that there's no viable candidate in opposition to the radical DSA candidate or the radical Democrat? That's the bigger problem. I'm not saying you're wrong, Ron. I think you have a lot of very valid points, but I think the bigger problem is in King County. In King County, I'm looking at my ballot, and half these races I'm voting for my dead grandfather because I think he'd do a better job than some of these candidates who are there. If you look at my voter's guide, I keep getting emails from people. And if you haven't got my voter's guide yet, text the word VOTE to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. You will see there are races I have not endorsed in yet because there's nobody worth endorsing.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me. But as far as your young lady there reference to sports, I would suggest really a simple solution. We just have another category for Democrat women because, as you know, the best thing about a Republican woman is no penis.
Oh, dude. Dude, there are kids listening to the show. There's kids listening to the show. But I hear where you're coming from. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to give us a call, you have to use our new secret phone number, 206-644-6006. That's 206-644-6006. While the phone company fixes our lines, you want to text the show, you text us at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Don't forget, you can get my voter's guide by texting the word VOTE, V-O-T-E, to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And remember, if you see a race, which I haven't weighed in on yet, you can email me, ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. In fact, at 5:30 today, we're having a candidate from one of the races who goes, "Hey, Ari, I noticed you didn't endorse anybody in that race. Would you mind having me on to make my case?" And we're going to do that at 5:30 today. But up next, my friends, your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. Also, Democrats talk about affordability and are doing everything they can to make your life less affordable. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves, Keith Swank will be joining us. They can't beat him at the ballot box, so they're trying to get rid of him other ways. An attorney who had the job for 30 minutes is suing Trump to get the U.S. attorney role back in Western Washington. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it is your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. That's right, my friends. This week, we are giving away a trip to Southern California to go to Disneyland and Universal, or $3,000 in cold, hard cash. All you have to do is text the word I give you to the number I give you for your chance to win. Do not text your name. Do not text your phone number. Do not text your email address. Do not text in Ari. Dressed so fancy today, I see, on the live stream cameras. Look at that, a white button-down shirt. Don't text that. Just text the word I give you to the number I give you for your chance to win. Today's word is tan. As in, if you go to Southern California, you might get a tan. As in, if you're standing in line at Disneyland, you might get a tan. As in, hey, Ari, what a lovely tan you have this summer, especially in contrast with your white button-down shirt. Text the word TAN, T-A-N, to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 for your chance to win. Thank you to our in-house Pink Floyd cover band for always showing up to give us the right mood music. Why am I wearing this button-down white shirt, by the way, you might ask? Because I was on Fox News this morning. In fact, I was on Fox Business with Stuart Varney earlier today, talking about what we've been talking about here, which is Starbucks leaving Seattle. Now, I'm really glad I did my prep. I'd never been on his show before. And I always do prep before I do these things. And I went to look at it and I go, holy cow, you get maybe 2 minutes of talk time. Maybe that's it. And then you are done. Usually the interviews I do are 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes 2 segments, and you get to say a lot more of your case. 1 minute you get with Stuart Varney. 1 minute to make your case. Tell me if you guys think I nailed it with this one. Here's what I said.
Did anyone try and stop companies like Starbucks, for example, leaving the state and going to Tennessee? Because Starbucks warned them, don't do this.
A company as big as Starbucks, as politically connected as Starbucks, doesn't get up and leave overnight. It turns out Governor Bob Ferguson was warned by Starbucks in a formal letter, your tax hikes are going to hurt our business and any business that is headquartered in Washington state. And instead of actually addressing them, he signed the largest tax hike in Washington state history. Then when Starbucks asked for a meeting because Washington was considering its first income tax, Bob Ferguson blew them off until the company announced that they were expanding to Nashville, adding 2,000 jobs, laying off about the equal amount of jobs here in Seattle. And then they were building this over 100,000 square foot headquarters. Then Bob Ferguson wanted to meet with them. What was the goal of the meeting? To convince them that the taxes were a good thing, as opposed to actually hearing their concerns. And now we are losing a company, one of the ones which Seattle is known for.
57 seconds. Booyah! That's right. Got a whole story I've been spending entire segments on, done in 57 seconds. Trained professional. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll be here all week and next week and the week after that.
You should have saved this for the good news segment at the end of the show so you could brag about how good you are.
Well, I'm just very impressed with myself because, Kevin, you've got the camera on you and you've got Stuart Varney sitting there and you've got the people from Fox News in your ears, and I don't get to go on Fox News very often, and I'm like, all right, I got to nail this. Hoffman, you got to nail this. So they invite you back. Boom, shakalaka. Sorry, I don't usually crow about these things. I'm just very happy about it. But the downside to me being on Fox News is that, once again, Seattle is a national embarrassment. Once again, Washington is a national embarrassment. Once again, it's a national story and not in a good way. So we talk about how the income tax is going to make Washington less affordable. We talk about how all these taxes, Bob Ferguson citing the largest tax increase in Washington state history, makes Washington less affordable. And now you've got the DSA and politicians around here going, affordability, affordability, affordability. They are liars. They are ginormous liars. You know how I know that? You know how they say, tax the rich, tax the rich. Well, guess what? They're about to tax all of us here in Seattle. According to Fox 13, Seattle voters will decide this November whether to approve a tax hike that would double the city's dedicated sales tax rate from 0.15% to 0.3%. The measure adds an extra 15 cents to every $100 spent on eligible transactions in the city, generating an estimated $138 million over 10 years for transit programs. Stop. You know why I'm furious about this right out the gate? Because we don't have fair gates. That's number one. So during the World Cup, you know how much money those greedy you-know-whats could have had at Sound Transit and the buses and everything else? They could have had millions of dollars, but only 2/3 of people actually paid for it, and that's according to their own numbers. They offered all this free transportation up and down the waterfront through King County Metro. And while it was nice and while it was convenient, my wife and I, the week before the World Cup, decided to go try it out. And both of us said afterwards that we would have happily paid for it, that you didn't have to make it free. We would have happily paid for it. But instead, you had all this free transit up and down the waterfront, which you didn't need to do. Didn't need to do. When you think, well, it's only 15 cents for $100. $100 is a tank of gas these days. Now it's going to be more expensive with the sales tax being added on. $100 is like 5 items at the grocery store these days. Now that's going to be more expensive. $100 is like the new $20 bill when we were kids these days. That's how much you need to save up. You want to buy something if you're a kid. It's not the $20 we used to take and go buy something. Now you need the $100 to go buy something because things are so expensive. And this isn't a tax on the millionaires or the billionaires. Aren't the Democrats the ones who are always saying that all these taxes are regressive? Well, guess what? You're about to slap another one on all of us. What would this actually fund? The proposed funding would expand King County bus service in Seattle by nearly 50%. Adding roughly 100,000 bus trips with a focus on late night and weekend routes. Stop. Late night and the homeless need transportation. This isn't to get people to work. This is for the homeless. This is for the drug addicts. So we need more rolling homeless encampments? No, thank you. No, thank you. Additionally, the legislation fulfills Seattle's staffing obligations to regional light rail projects. Wait. So let me make sure I got this right. By the mayor of Seattle being on the Sound Transit Board, they agree to certain things like we're going to give you X amount of staff. You didn't have the money for it, so now you're coming after us for it? It also implements safety improvements aboard city buses. For those of you that don't follow my social media, and you should, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, the Hoffather over on X. A week or so ago, Young Zach, I don't want to say he's a dumpster diver. That's not the right word for him. Young Zach likes finding things that he can sell online, and he's very good at it, by the way. Very, very good at it.
I don't know if that's worse than hoarder. Dumpster diver, I think it is, but I would say he's a...
It's not hoarder.
He's a hoarder. He's not but I wouldn't say he's like a level 10 hoarder.
No, he doesn't.
Probably
It's not
like
messy.
a 6 or a 7.
It's not messy. It's like that costume he got that he sold for a lot of money. He spent a couple $100 on, then sold the thing, right?
But my understanding is he has become very creative about hiding things in the house to keep it out of sight. But it's like one of those things where you go into the closet and next thing you know, you open it up and it's sky high with...
it's Monica's closet from Friends. Yes.
Snow cone machines that he's probably never used. Various props from various TV shows and films and whatnot.
Yes.
Well,
I bought a Father's Day present for my dad from Young Zach. He got a thing from Die Hard, made a good deal with Zach and sold. So that paid off for him.
A light hoarder.
Oh, okay. We'll go with that.
Probably not against dumpster diving. He is the type of guy that would drive by a dumpster, and if there was something on the the side of it that resembled like, oh, I don't know, is that a TV or something? He'd pull over.
He might actually pull over. Why do I say this? Young Zach was at a surplus depot, a surplus auction, if you will, a surplus store. And he sends me a picture. Do you know what they're selling? Those sneeze guards from King County Metro and all the other Metro from COVID. Yes, please, I need this plastic garbage that's never going to get used again. So we need the money on the sales tax for more plastic garbage for the buses. That's what they're there for. How about you just put cops on transit, and then you don't need to worry about putting these guys in this enclosure that reflects light. So now the drivers actually think something's coming the other direction at them when it isn't. I've spoken to some of the bus drivers. They don't like those things. They like not getting killed by the psychopath they're letting on the bus because of the late night and extended weekend routes that they're adding. But they're really worried about driving because it looks like something else is coming with them. The legislation directly mentions King County bus driver Sean Yim, who was stabbed to death by a passenger on December 18, 2024, near the University of Washington campus. So they pull at your heartstrings. Hey, maybe if you arrested wait a second. Kevin, wasn't that dude an illegal alien? What? Wasn't that dude? I'm pretty sure that dude was an illegal alien. I got to go back and double check. It's been a while since we covered that story. I don't want to forget. I think he was either a prolific offender or an illegal alien. I don't remember which one.
Yeah, I think you're safe if you cover your bases with those two choices. But I don't recall either.
I am pretty sure he was an illegal alien. So, would have had this problem if we either kept prolific offenders in jail or actually didn't allow illegal aliens into our country. The city council voted for this unanimously, which means the next time any of them talk about affordability and taxes on the working class and how they want to make things easier for the working class, they are all just voted for you to be hit with more taxes. Then there's this. This, according to Como News. A final vote has now changed what drivers will pay every time they use two specific toll roads. For some motorists, the price will soon be cut in half. For everyone else, the bill will stay the same. In a 6-0 vote, members of the Washington State Transportation Commission created the state's first low-income toll discount program for the SR 509 and SR 167 expressways. Qualifying drivers will receive a 50% discount off the standard good-to-go toll rate for 2-axle vehicles. State transportation officials will begin enrolling eligible drivers this fall, with the reduced rates taking effect as early as December. So I make sure I got this right. You're going to, while you're saying you have all these budget crises and everything else, reduce the amount of money people are paying in tolls. Now, you say it's going to stay the same for the rest of us. Does anybody believe them? I'll tell you what, if you believe them, there are 2 empty cargo vessels outside my window right now in that haze smoke that's out there. 2 empty cargo vessels. I will sell them to you for a 2-for-1 deal. And I'm going a cheap deal today. For the amount you pay in tolls one day on SR 167 or SR 509. I have the authority to sell you those 2 ships for that amount of money. If you believe that's going to stay the same. No, you know what's going to happen? They're going to raise the toll rates to pay for this little discount they're now offering to these low-income people, or they're going to keep the toll going. Wait a second. I thought the toll was just to pay off the construction. I thought that's what the toll was for. Now you're going to keep the toll, but it's really hurting some families, so you're going to raise it on the rest of us and reduce it for just them. The program represents years of work after the legislature directed the commission in 2019 to study ways to make toll roads more affordable for lower-income residents. Hey, are you guys going to reduce the amount of money it costs for the car tabs? You guys going to do that? This was the argument I had with members of the Washington State Legislature. One of them was a Republican. Do you remember this insanity where they were going to impound your car if you didn't pay your car tabs? Do you remember this? Because so many people weren't paying their car tabs? And one of my questions was, have you thought about lowering the price of the car? Well, we can't do that. That would be crazy. That would be nuts. I said, do you think maybe you've hit the laugher curve? where people now don't want to pay because you're charging them so much. Me and 1 million of my friends are currently not paying for our car tabs. That's right. Not that I'm recommending you break the law, but me and 1 million of my friends are not doing it, and that number's only going up every single day. My brother-in-law, rule keeper, follows the rules, good guy. He said, that's it, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not going to get pulled over anyway. Why should I pay for the car tabs? I'm paying a fortune. Aha, I've converted another one. Because it's gotten too insane. It's gotten too insane. Have you guys thought about lowering the prices? Oh, we can't do that. That would be insane. Now, meanwhile, while all this is going on, people have hit their braking limit. Hit it, and they're not paying it anymore.
I had a friend who got pulled, or actually, what was it?
Accident, pulled over?
Oh, I think
Parking
he was
ticket?
in Shoreline, which technically is not part of Seattle and King County, right?
Yes,
He
right.
got pulled over because he had tabs that were expired.
Mm-hmm.
He had forgotten and he wasn't doing it on purpose. I actually did it for about a month this year too. I didn't.
What?
I know. I didn't get my thing in the mail. I didn't get an email. I don't know what happened. So I was like driving around. But the Shoreline officer told him, you probably haven't been pulled over in King County because they can't pull you over just for tabs.
Exactly.
You have to be doing something else. And then also if you have expired tabs, then
they'll hit you for that as well.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I don't know how true that is, but...
No, that's true. We've covered it on the show before.
I want to say he was driving around for like almost a year, and he didn't realize they're expired. I know you're like, a year.
I can beat that. I bought my latest Charger in 2023. That's right.
Yeah, okay, but didn't you have to... You were forced to get tabs because your kids were learning to drive.
That was on the truck, which I don't
on
own
the truck,
anymore.
okay.
I sold it through my friends over at Renton
Nice.
Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram when we started doing the promotion with them, so I don't have the truck anymore. That's right, I had to do that so my kid could drive the truck. Now, I do pay the tabs on my wife's car. I do pay the tabs over there. And the car that my friends at Dodge give me to drive around on, this time it's the V6, it's the inline 6 Charger. That one has the tabs up to date. But my Charger does not. It does not, because I know what it costs. And somehow, we have the only formula in the world where cars appreciate in value. Look, I love my Dodge Charger. I don't know if it's going to become a collector's item, but King County treats it like it's going to be. My 2023 Dodge Charger, they treat it like it's a collector's item already, and the thing's 3 years old. You know what happens at 3 years old? That's when your warranty is up, but somehow it's appreciating in value, right? Now, it's not just the car tabs. Everything's getting more expensive. Everything. Why? Because there's a spending problem. This from our friends over at the Center Square. The Washington State operating budget has increased 230% since 2001, according to a presentation to the Joint Legislative Executive Committee on Budget Transparency and Fiscal Sustainability. Do you think maybe you have a spending problem? Do you think maybe that's why Christine Gregoire, Democrat, calling you out? That's why Gary Locke, Democrat, calling you out. That's why Todd Lewicki, CEO of the Kraken, Democrat, calling you out. That's why Howard Schultz, Democrat, calling you out. Do you think maybe it's a spending problem? Just maybe. Just maybe. Maybe. No, Bob Ferguson and crew will never admit that. Never, ever will. They just won't. Because they're addicted to the spending. They think they can spend your money better than you can. They think they know better. Just like our local judges around here who think they know better than our president, appointed a U.S. attorney to fill a spot. Trump fired him in 30 minutes. Now, guess what? He's suing for the rollback. We'll tell you about all this insanity up next. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Absolutely love some of the insane crime stories that we've seen around here in the past week. And I feel like we haven't done our due diligence on bringing these out-of-control crime stories to you. I mean, this one that we start this section off with is completely bonkers. So a man was sentenced to 15 years in a jet ski drug smuggling scheme near the Washington-Canada border. A 69-year-old former resident of Rhode Island, Texas, and Chicago was sentenced to 15 years in prison Friday for 3 federal felonies connected to his 2021 scheme to smuggle duffel bags of drugs across the strait bordering Washington and Canada via a watercraft. You mean a jet ski. They call jet skis watercrafts, for those of you who don't know. John Michael Sherwood was convicted in April 2026 after a 6-day trial of conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, possession of controlled substances with intent to distribute, and conspiracy to commit international money laundering. The U.S. Department of Justice made the announcement and said that Judge Richard A. Jones said at the sentencing hearing, what you did came across as a madman desperate for money. A madman willing to do anything. At the end of the day, what you were doing would cause tremendous harm to thousands of individuals. Testimony and evidence at the trial revealed that Sherwood brought roughly 300 pounds of methamphetamine and nearly 1 kilogram of fentanyl powder up the Olympic Peninsula from Southern California. Okay, I got a question. Kevin, you've been on a jet ski before. I have a logistic question. There are the jet skis where you have that little storage area under where you sit. It's not very big. Are you wearing a bag on your back like Indiana Jones in a satchel or something?
Are they towing something?
Are they
towing something?
Towing something on a jet ski is not really...
Right. I mean, but you're right. There isn't... I mean... Are there luxurious like ski-doo situations that I'm not aware of, or sea-doo, I should say?
There was this time. I will tell you this. My first time at the Washington State Fair, back when they called it the Puyallup Fair, they had the enter to win a jet ski, and stupid 22-year-old Ari Hoffman is like, yeah, I'm going to win a jet ski. And actually, they called me, and they said, you won a jet ski. I'm like, shut up, I did not. And they're like, if you come down here and sit in this marketing thing, and then you might have a chance to win the... I'm like, I see what happened here. Now that sucker, why do I bring this up? It had 4 seats. So that probably had a bigger section in it, but I don't see a lot of 4-seater jet skis, right?
No.
Yeah.
I would... It would be interesting to see this. Now, you asked... You've been on a jet ski.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to know how long ago this was?
Yeah.
One of those old school stand-up jet skis.
Yes.
Back in the day. And when you wrecked it or whatever, it was like a clamshell. It'd snap shut, then start going in a circle. You had to go over and grab it.
Yes.
My buddy had one of those, lived in Lake Stevens. He lived on the lake. It was the only time I ever went on one of those ski-doos.
Gotcha.
Skidoos.
Sea-doos?
I don't know.
Sea-doo's a brand.
Sea-doo is a brand, yes.
So it's like saying I was on a motorcycle, but I was on a Harley Davidson.
I'm being an idiot on purpose. But yeah, I mean the old school ones, those were tough to get up on.
Yes, they were. Those were. You had to also launch kind of out of the water on those suckers. So
do they even sell those anymore?
I don't think so. The last time I saw
People
those,
are lazy. I'm not going to stand up and have to like.
Yeah, why not sit on the thing?
Yeah.
The last time I saw one of those suckers was in Police Academy. Was it 5 Mission to Miami or whatever it was? When there's an army of ski-doos led by Steve Guttenberg chasing after the bad guys. I think that was the one that had Sharon Stone in it. That's how long ago I think I saw those things en masse.
If you say so, I saw one.
You only saw one.
Yeah. Long time ago.
I love those stupid movies. If you play the Police Academy theme song, I get such a smile on my face just for hearing the Police Academy, because it just makes me smile, those stupid movies. You never see those movies on TV anymore, do you?
No.
I think that's because of the Blue Oyster Club. Right, we all know what happened in the Blue Oyster Club. Dancing, sir. Lots of dancing. But why did I bring up the jet ski thing? How many trips did this guy have to make to bring that much? You can't hold a lot in the jet skis. When describing this guy's role along with his co-conspirators in the drug trade, Assistant U.S. Attorney Vince Lombardi, that's not his name. Okay. Assistant U.S. Attorney Vince Lombardi, who also plays football, told the jurors they are the FedEx or UPS of the drug trafficking crew. Wow. Wow. Now, I can't help but think, if we had different U.S. attorneys in charge, ones that say were nominated by Democrat federal judges, what things might be like around here? Would we not be prosecuting these kind of crimes? Time for the order part of the Law and Order, my friends. So, you remember the guy who was the U.S. attorney for about 30 minutes before Donald Trump fired him? The one who was appointed by the district judges, the federal district judges, who are all Democrats? Roger Rogoff. Well, now he's suing the Trump administration to get his job back. Now, let's go back to what happened. We have U.S. Attorney for Western Washington, Neil Floyd. Neil Floyd does a good job. Neil Floyd wants to enforce the law. Neil Floyd doesn't want us to be a sanctuary city. Neil Floyd wants to do all the right things. So, of course, the Democrats, a.k.a. Maria Cantwell, and what's-her-face, Patty Murray, they both don't want him, so they won't give him these things called a blue slip to make sure he actually gets nominated in the Senate. Chuck Grassley, senator, hasn't changed the rules for this stupid, archaic blue slip thing that means absolutely nothing. It's not in the Constitution anywhere. It doesn't say, you shall nominate the person with advice and consent of the Senate and blue slips. Doesn't say that at all. So instead, we have this old, stupid, antiquated tradition. And as such, Neil Floyd, who is very qualified, friend of the show, cannot get a hearing. So he's in a temporary role. So these judges go, we're going to fill the role, and we're going to fill the role with somebody who's very, very lefty. Hey, let's get the Inslee appointee, Roger Rogoff. Let's get this guy. So he comes walking on in there, all appointed, and then Trump goes, you're fired. You're fired after 30 minutes. This whole thing was a stunt. They knew he was going to get fired. They knew he wouldn't get the job, but they want the court case because this is happening in other blue cities, other blue states across the U.S. They want the case and they want to settle who actually gets to appoint these guys, the judges on the bench or the president. This is just to stall it out and actually take it through the courts. This is going to end up in front of the Supreme Court, and we'll see how it shakes out. Speaking of things that will most likely end up in front of the courts, Democrats locally are trying to get rid of our friend Keith Swank, Pierce County Sheriff. So we'll tell you what's going on with that. He's going to join us next. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Today's Newsmaker Spotlight is brought to you by our friends over at Renewal by Andersen, Western Washington windows and doors for every home. Well, now that the World Cup is over, we know that Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson has turned off some of the flock cameras around the stadiums. What's interesting to me is there are others that are off around the Seattle area. I literally heard from a contractor friend of mine earlier today who said to me, Ari, we had this massive break-in on a job site. Seattle police say they can't do anything because the cameras are off and those would have helped. Now, mind you, there's this whole push to get rid of these things across King County, across Washington State, and people have various thoughts on it, so I figured it was best to go to the expert. Joining us now to discuss, Sheriff of Pierce County, the one and only Keith Swank. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm not going to say there isn't a huge privacy discussion to be had, but if you guys don't have enough police officers, isn't this kind of like the second best option?
Yes, it really is a good option. It helps us to find which direction suspects went so we can start heading our resources that way, our limited resources the way the suspect went when they commit a crime and leave the area.
Gotcha. So they are helpful that way, and it seems like the Democrats are in a war against all of them. Is this part of defunding the police? Is this against ICE? Which one do you think it actually is? Because I've heard every excuse, and it sounds to me they just don't want them because they just don't like law enforcement.
I believe that this is all about ICE. You know, we had these cameras up before. We've had them up for a long time. I must say, though, Pierce County Sheriff's Office do not have any flock cameras out. But flock cameras have been out in society for a long time. Democrats had no trouble with it. Then they have problems with ICE. And really, they passed legislation to make it difficult to use these cameras because they want to keep violent, illegal aliens in our communities. That's what it's about. They should just call it what it is. And that's what's going on here. They don't care about your privacy at all. The guys on the right care about privacy, but the people on the left, they don't care about it. They just care about illegal aliens.
Yeah, it seems to me it's also part of this whole, well, we don't like enforcing the law on anybody, and if it wasn't illegal aliens, they would just find something else to be mad about. And speaking of them being mad about things, they really don't like you. I mean, I would normally say, hey, why don't you just challenge the guy at the ballot box? But it seems like they thought you would never win, and ever since you did win, they're trying everything they possibly can to get you out of office.
It's very funny, isn't it? Yeah, they thought, especially the newspapers and things like that, they said, don't worry about that guy Swank. That shows you how uninformed they are. You know, Ari, and your listeners know, I've been involved in politics for a long time in Pierce County, so I know a lot of people don't like me, but a lot of people do like me too, and enough people like me that I won. So, now they're upset about it because I'm independent. I can't be told what to do, and they cannot recall me the legal way because there's no malfeasance or misfeasance or crime that I've committed. So this is the way for them to recall me.
Crazy stuff. Absolutely crazy stuff. Now, here's the thing I actually caution conservatives about. I say, guys, you're talking too much about AOC. You're talking too much about Mamdani. And as such, you're giving them more attention because you and I are of similar age. And you know that when they slapped a parental advisory warning on a CD, we went out and bought it right away because we wanted to see what the big thing was about. Do you think they've done the same thing to you in all these efforts to get rid of you?
I think so. I think that, they've gone so far with it, with the actually making it not just an appointed position, but then removing me from office on January 1st, 2027, which is the halfway point of my term. I think people are paying attention to that. And even people who don't like me believe that it's wrong to remove somebody from office when they've been duly elected by the people.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that anybody who's smart is going to go, wait a minute. If they could do this to a guy I don't like, what happens if they do this to a guy they like? I mean, it may seem like a far time off, but some point the pendulum will swing here in Washington and we'll have Republicans in charge. And what if they start randomly removing Democrats? I think this sets a really bad precedent, don't you?
It does. It sets a really bad precedent. And I think that, reasonable people, they can dislike me, but still say, hey, I want to vote for my candidate. I want to vote against Swank or whatever the case may be. And I'm hoping that we'll have a majority of people that believe that way, that they want to protect, as the left likes to say, protect democracy.
In the last few minutes we have with Sheriff Keith Swank, why don't you tell us the latest of exactly what they're doing? Because for the people that are just joining us going, wait a minute, they're removing an elected official, they're not recalling him, they're just getting rid of him halfway through his term. How did this happen?
Pierce County is one of 7 counties in Washington State that are chartered counties, which means its own mini constitution. And in that, every 10 years, they have a Charter Review Commission meeting. And the Charter Review Commission committee members were mostly on the left. They had a majority, and they decided that they wanted to bring in front of the voters of Pierce County an amendment to make the sheriff an appointed position. The sheriff of Pierce County was appointed a long time ago, then they became elected. It's a long story about it. But anyhow, right on the 11th hour, right before everything was done, somebody decided from that committee members to add an amendment to the amendment. So that new amendment says not only will the sheriff revert to being an appointed position, but also it will remove the current sheriff from office on January 1st, 2027. So that, in effect, is having a recall without actually going through the judge, stating your case, collecting signatures, all the stuff that you need to do to really do a recall. So it is a recall on Keith Swank.
Yeah, it's crazy. And also, we know how this works out. When you have a political appointee as a sheriff, we saw what happened in King County. Burien, who has the King County Sheriff as their police department because they don't have their own police department, the King County didn't want to enforce any of the laws that Burien wanted to pass on homelessness, so they had to take them to court. And they were part of a Supreme Court case to get King County Sheriff to do their job because they were run by a political hack. So basically, the idiot voters, and yes, I'm saying that because I live in King County, decide to give up their right to vote. And now they're trying to do the same thing in Pierce County, right?
Right. That's what they're trying to do, to persuade people to give up their right to vote. And you're exactly right. The sheriff is the last person standing in front of the people to fight back against any corruption by the politicians, the county council, the executive, or anything. If the sheriff ends up being appointed, then all of that's gone. Everything's gone, and the sheriff would do the bidding of the executive. No one will be held accountable. It will be a really bad day in Pierce County if that happens.
Well, God bless you, Keith Swank. Hope everything works out for the best. Hope you can continue doing the great job that you're doing. And we really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you very much.
We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. We've been telling you a lot about how a Seattle Public Schools investigation concluded it was more likely than not, direct quote, that Seattle Education Association President Ibijoki Idowu physically grabbed a special education student hard enough to leave bruises and substantiated additional allegations about her conduct towards students. Well, the teachers union in Seattle elected her president even though she was on suspension for this investigation, which tells me they assume that nothing's going to happen to them because they're the teachers union. Or alternatively, what it tells me is they didn't care. They didn't care. We're going to elect her because she has a name that sounds very African. We're going to elect her for that reason. Or whatever other reason there is. There is no good reason why you would pick this person to be your president who's under investigation, because that investigation may end the wrong way. Look, afterwards, been exonerated, fine. But while the investigation's going on and the person's suspended, are you out of your minds? Oh, I forgot who we're talking about. We're talking about the Seattle Teachers Union. Well, now parents have found out about this. And what I find entertaining, it's King 5 that's interviewing them. I got to say, I've been enjoying King 5 a lot these days. I don't know what change happened over there. They're not as woke as they used to be. Don't get me wrong. They're still King 5. But maybe they read the tea leaves or something and said, hey, you know, it's really not good to have this reputation as like the most left-leaning station in town. King 5 has a story for us.
A Seattle Public Schools Human Resources investigation lays out allegations and photos that devastate parents Ola Ibrahim and Tyson Marsh.
My child is 8 years old, and he has learned to not trust the adults in his own community. And to feel that he's not safe in their presence.
Marsh says it traces back to what allegedly happened to their son in December under the care of his Rising Stars elementary special education teacher, Ibijoki Idowu.
He's still on paid leave and still president of the union.
In May, Idowu rose to a new role, president of the Seattle Education Association. Marsh recently posted on social media about the now suspended educator who's the subject of an ongoing district investigation.
I saw very clear bruise marks that looked exactly like fingers and a thumb wrapped around on the other side.
The boy's mother recalls what her son told her.
He was hurt by an adult and that it was a teacher and that it was specifically that teacher.
When investigators questioned Idowu, she denied the allegations. Across the report's 14 pages, investigators' findings include students crying and flinching in the classroom and Idowu raising her voice. The district will now forward the report to HR management. But these parents insist it doesn't capture the full scope of their concerns.
The teacher would send me videos of what she thought was progress.
She says one video sent early in the school year shows the teacher pulling her son's chair away
so that he could do his assignment. He is crying in the video and asking her for his chair. And she is asking him to calm down and finish his assignment so he could have his chair back.
They're calling on school leaders to act.
We're also deeply disturbed by the actions of the union and union members to continue to sweep this under the rug and hide it from the public view.
In a statement, the union says it does not comment on individual cases.
We are supporters of public education and always have been because we both work in public education. But I cannot trust the system any longer. I can't trust them to take care of my child.
I reached out to the teacher. She says she cannot respond while the case is ongoing. Police investigated and sent a statutory referral to prosecutors in May. Prosecutors still must decide whether they have enough evidence to charge a crime. In the newsroom, Natalie Swaby, King 5 News.
Wait. They sent a referral to prosecutors in May. The election was in June. The election for the teachers union was in June. Something else, by the way, I can see the video, you can't. If you look at these parents, how do I put this nicely? They do not look like listeners of the Ari Hoffman show. They most certainly look like people who probably don't listen to the show. If I'm wrong and I'm judging a book by its cover, my friends, send us a text at 206-421-5757. We will have you on the show to tell your story. But I want to remind everybody, the Washington State Legislature wanted to make it that schools did not have to inform parents for 48 hours if something had happened to their child on campus, like abuse. They want to hide it from the parents. They want to hide everything from the parents. That is why there is an initiative on the ballot for November, IL26001, strengthen communication between parents and schools, which would make sure that you know what's going on with your kids in the public schools. This is the one the Democrats gutted, destroyed, even though it had been passed in the legislature because the Democrats were facing an election. They gutted, they destroyed this thing. This is to force them to put all this stuff back that was there originally. Remember to vote yes to make sure you get to communicate with the teachers, with the administrators about what is going on with your kids in that school. It's why it's so important for you to vote yes on this initiative and so many other initiatives, like the one to keep boys out of girls' sports, like the one to repeal the income tax. These are so, so important, and so many people are not paying attention to them. There's also a question I get asked all the time. Ari, why aren't the initiatives on your voter recommendation list? And the reason they're not on there is because it's going to be on the November ballot. My voter recommendation list is for the primary. I might revise it heading into the general. I'll likely revise the races where somebody won or lost, but some of my choices I might revise before then. So if you want my voter's guide, text the word VOTE. That's VOTE. Text the word VOTE, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I will remind everybody, the best form of research you can do is your own. This is just a guide. And if you have disagreements or you want me to consider somebody else in a race I haven't endorsed or recommended, feel free to reach out to me, ARI@KVI.com. You know, actually just reached out to me about my voter's guide, KUOW. They want to have a little chat about my voter's guide. I am all for it. I am excited to go talk to our friends at NPR, have a little discussion about my voter's guide, how I arrived at the conclusions I did. You want to see what caught their attention? Text me the word VOTE, VOTE, to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friend, Zoran Mamdani just stepped in it big time with a social media tweet. Tell you what he said up next. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up on this hour, a candidate who seeks to get rid of one of the worst members of Congress will be joining us. Also, Katie Wilson takes a victory lap on safety during the World Cup, but then refuses to do anything to keep Seattle safe. And can Sophie Cunningham keep boys out of girls' sports? But before we get to any of that, Zoran Mamdani, holy cow. He just tweeted something which really ticks me off. I want to throw my computer through a wall. Let me give you a little context about what his tweet from just a few minutes ago, why it is setting me off so bad. Here's what happened last night. Last night, Zoran Mamdani put out a video with sad, sad music about why he's not going to be able to arrest Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. He puts out this video because he's been promising to arrest Bibi Netanyahu. When he became mayor, he was promising this during the campaign. He's been promising this since he was mayor. And he's been promising this the past few weeks. We're going to explore all options to arrest, the prime minister of our greatest ally in the region, if not the world. We're going to arrest the Jew. That's what he's been promising to do, because he's a war criminal. Not Putin, not Kim Jong-il, not any of the people who run China, which literally has concentration camps in it. Nobody from Iran, not them Ayatollahs, even the one who's probably dead, or the cardboard cutout of the Ayatollah. None of those guys. No. We're going to arrest Bibi Netanyahu. Well, even his own supporters were calling him out for, dude, you're not going to do this. You're not going to be able to do this. You don't have the power to do this. So Zoran Mamdani puts out this video in which he mourns terrorists, in which he acknowledges he never had the legal authority to do this. This is the video he puts out.
Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal.
Oh,
the architect of a horrific genocide.
Really? Because I think Hamas started that whole thing. It wasn't Israel. Just a hunch there.
He is responsible for the killing of more than 73,000 people.
So if you're actually going with that number, that includes a lot of Hamas terrorists, about 50 to 60,000 of them by Hamas's own numbers. So you're mourning the terrorists the way Pramila Jayapal mourned terrorists in her 9/11 post. Do you remember that fun?
For the maiming of tens of thousands of children.
Well, tell your Hamas buddies not to use them as human shields and not to hide missiles in schools and hospitals and such. You won't have these problems. This is, okay, it's him explaining why he's not, here's how terrible this guy is, but I can't actually prosecute him. Now, I thought to myself, is he aware of the date in the Jewish calendar? And I said, no way he's aware of the date in the Jewish calendar, because odds are most of you are not aware of the date in the Jewish calendar. Even Kevin, who works with me every single day, has no idea what the date is in the Jewish calendar. Just so all of you know, it's the 9th of Av, the Jewish month of Av, which is known as Tisha B'Av, Tisha, the 9th of Av, in the Jewish calendar. Who cares, Ari? So you've got your own calendar that's based on the moon. Who cares? Why is this date so important? It starts tonight. Jewish holidays always start at night. Jewish days always start at night. We believe nightfall is when the day starts. Sabbath, whole bunch of stuff. This date has always been a day of bad things happening to the Jews throughout our entire history. And the weeks surrounding it, the weeks leading up to it, the 3 weeks leading up to it, is a sign of mourning. It's a sign where you don't take any risks, especially in the 9 days leading up to Tisha B'Av, to the 9th day, because bad things happen to Jews. For example, those of you watching on the live stream may say, Ari, you look so shaggy. You look you look like you haven't shaved in a while. What's going on? It's a sign of mourning. That's why I haven't shaved in about 3 weeks. Also, the 9 days, like, for example, I don't go out on my boat during the 9 days. It's a sign of trouble. You don't tempt fate kind of thing during the 9 days. There's a lot of things you don't do. You don't listen to live music. You don't have weddings. You don't have parties. Here are the things that happen throughout Jewish history on Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of Av. The sin of the spies. You know, when the spies said they didn't want to go into Israel and things are going to be so bad from the Bible, you know that story? Happened on Tisha B'Av. Destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem by the Babylonians in 586 BC, Tisha B'Av. Destruction of the second temple by the Romans in the year 70 AD. That's actually what the holiday is all about. The holiday is all about, on Tisha B'Av, mourning the destruction of the temple. In fact, there's going to be a big thing at the Western Wall tomorrow, which my daughter is going to be part of because she is in Israel, and one of her summer programs where they sit and they say prayers all day and they sing songs all day. It's really actually very beautiful and very moving. Fall of Beitar during the Bar Kokhba revolt. In 135 AD, Jerusalem was plowed under and rebuilt as the pagan city by the Emperor Hadrian in 135 AD. Massacres of Jewish communities during the First Crusade in 1096. Expulsion of Jews from England in 1290. Expulsion of the Jews from France in 1306. Expulsion of the Jews from Spain during the Inquisition in 1492. Yes, in 1492, it wasn't just that Columbus sailed the ocean blue. The Jews were also exiled from Spain. Outbreak of World War I happened on Tisha B'Av in the Jewish calendar, which most people would agree set up World War II and the Holocaust. The Warsaw Ghetto was deported. The people in the Warsaw Ghetto were deported to Treblinka on Tisha B'Av of 1942. Even recently, Israel's disengagement from Gaza began right after Tisha B'Av in 2005. That's when they kicked the Jews out of their homes in Gaza to give it to the Palestinians. This is the stuff that has happened on this day, which is why we take it so seriously, which is why it is a day of mourning. That's what we do. Here's what Mamdani wrote just a few minutes ago. Wishing a peaceful Tisha B'Av to Jewish New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs. From sundown tonight until tomorrow, mourners will pause and reflect on the history and resiliency of the Jewish people. May all observing have a safe and meaningful fast. Now, did Mamdani know what the Jewish date was yesterday? He's not a dummy. I know people call him dummy. He's not a dummy. Did he know specifically? Well, some of you might say, no, Ari, this is just one of those generic posts that go out for holidays. Most people don't put out posts about Tisha B'Av. Politicians don't usually put out posts about Tisha B'Av. They put a post about Hanukkah and Passover and the Jewish New Year. They don't put out posts about Tisha B'Av. A couple of years ago when I was in Israel, I went out to the Temple Mount, where the temple used to be, where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is now and the Dome of the Rock is now. I went up there. Jews don't normally go up there very often because you have to go with a full security phalanx of the IDF with you. For those of you who've seen pictures of the Western Wall, there is this wooden ramp up the right-hand side. That's how you get up there. You go up there, and at the top, a full IDF platoon lines up around you with body cameras on, fully armed, guns loaded, ready to go, just so Jews can go visit the Temple Mount. Just to go look around at the Temple Mount. The doors open, and you're on the Temple Mount, and you're looking around. And for a place that Islam claims is one of their holiest sites, even though it's not, they treat it like garbage. They treat it like absolute garbage. Still mounds of rubble everywhere. Mounds of rubble. Stuff from the second temple, stuff from the first temple. Yesterday's garbage, all in piles together. You can see it if you go up there. If you look to your right, somebody has set up a display of columns throughout the centuries. There's Roman columns. There's Babylonian columns. Everybody's columns are up there. There's no plaques on them, though. Normally, when you see an exhibit like that, you go, this is from this period, this is from this century. But if you acknowledge when they're from, you acknowledge that they were all there before Islam even existed. Can't have that. There's also a gate that you look at. A gate that comes up to the Temple Mount, but the whole thing's been blocked over, completely blocked over. Why has the thing been blocked over and sealed shut? Because Jews believe the Messiah is coming through that gate one day. The Arabs want to stop that. The Muslims want to stop that. So what they have done is sealed up the gate, as if that could stop Messiah, and put a cemetery in front of it because cemetery contains ritual impurity, spiritual impurity, And you believe you can't be impure when you go up to the Temple Mount. So doesn't that say that Islam believes all the Jewish stuff? Doesn't that say that? Doesn't that say they know about the Jewish stuff? Do you think Mamdani knew about this when he put out the tweet? Because nobody wishes you a peaceful Tisha B'Av. Nobody wishes you an easy and meaningful fast. And they especially don't wish it when they absolutely hate Israel, the temple, which actually shuts down all that Muslim belief, shuts down all of it, proves the Jews were there first, and that's the Temple Mount, and it was all there first. Why did he mention Israel? It's his favorite topic. It's what he's obsessed with. He did a whole video about it last night. Why didn't he mention it? This is to egg people on. This is to egg people on. This is to stir the pot after his video last night. He likes how viral that video went, and he wants more of it. Every news station was talking about that video this morning. In fact, a little peek behind the curtain. I was asked to go on Fox Business this morning. And normally they send you the topics in advance. So Fox Business yesterday said we're going to be talking about Starbucks and how they're moving out of Seattle. And we might talk about, I don't even remember what the topic was, something else not Jewish related. Okay, something else about business. Fine, no problem. This morning I wake up, I have an email from Fox. Hey, we're going to talk about this Mamdani video too. You're cool with that, right? We're going to talk about the Mamdani video? Yeah. So after we finished talking about how Starbucks is moving out of Seattle, after we were talking about that, they pivoted, Stuart Varney pivoted over to the Mamdani video. Here's what happened.
Another one for you, Ari. New York City's Mayor Mamdani, he wants the feds to arrest Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Listen to what the mayor had to say about this earlier this morning.
And I can also look at Benjamin Netanyahu and see the way that he has orchestrated this genocide and also deem him to similarly be a war criminal. And it's clear that the city does not have the authority to execute this warrant. However, what is also clear is that the federal government does have the authority to execute this warrant. And I call on the federal government to join the International Criminal Court and to execute both this warrant as well as any warrant that the International Criminal Court holds.
What do you make of that, Ari? Come on.
Well, first things first, he says that the U.S. has the authority. Well, the U.S. isn't a member of the ICC, and he admits that in that statement. It's another Mamdani promise which he can't keep. He's like the kid who is running for class president who says, I'm going to give you free lunch and I'm going to give you free recess. He couldn't deliver on the free buses. He couldn't deliver on freezing the rent. And to his radical jihadi supporters, he can't deliver on the promise of arresting Netanyahu. Here's something else. In his little speech that he gave last night, he was mourning the dead terrorists. Even Hamas admits that their numbers include the terrorists. And he's not talking about arresting any of the other horrible people that are coming to New York for the General Assembly. He's not talking about arresting Putin. He's not talking about arresting anybody from North Korea. He's not talking about arresting anybody from Iran that's responsible for the death of over 1,000 Americans, including the 4 you were talking about in an earlier segment. No, he is talking about arresting the head of our closest ally in the Middle East, maybe even the world, and instead he's negotiating, his office is negotiating with Iran.
That's what Mamdani is doing. Mamdani is going for the virtue signaling. He's going for the points. He can't actually accomplish the free buses, can't get the free grocery stores, can't get any of his agenda done. Time to blame the Jews. Mamdani has been doing this literally for years. Before he was mayor of New York, 2 weeks after Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, Zoran Mamdani was on the streets of New York City screaming about Israel.
Who is ready for Palestinian freedom? Who is ready for the end of apartheid? The support for the Israeli government is something that is developed from the first moment that someone even thinks about politics in this country. We have to combat it at the same level. Not on our time! Not on our time!
Okay, enough. Oh, wait a minute. That's not 2 weeks after the massacre. That's 2 weeks before the massacre. Here's 2 weeks after the massacre.
And that means end the occupation. That means end the blockade and the siege. That means end the apartheid system of government. Do not bear witness. Do not bear witness. Take action. Take action. Take action.
You know that Israel, the IDF, hadn't gone into Gaza yet at that point? Do you remember there was about 3 weeks to almost 4 weeks while Israel mobilized, while they called up the reserves, while they moved the tanks, while they got the planes, while they did all the things they had to do before they actually retaliated for October 7th? They also had to secure their border and make sure there were no other terrorists and make sure it couldn't happen again. This was all pre-planned. This was all pre-staged. And Zoran Mamdani was part of it. You think this is an innocent tweet he's got here? Just wishing everybody a peaceful Tisha B'Av to Jewish New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs? He knows exactly what he is doing. He specifically didn't mention Israel, something he's completely obsessed with. Why do you think that is? I seem to remember some other guy who, when things weren't going his way, had a funny mustache also. And a bad haircut, just like Mamdani. Really bad haircut. Who, when things weren't going his way, blamed the Jews. I've seen this pattern before. I know how this movie ends. I'm calling it out because we're trying to change the ending. This is who's in charge of New York. Things aren't going his way, blame the Jews. Things aren't going his way, look for somebody to blame. Can't get his agenda across, who do we blame? Let's blame the Jews. This is to stir the pot. That's exactly what this is about, stirring the pot. His other video went viral last night. Everybody's talking about Mamdani. Let's do it again. Nobody wishes anybody a peaceful Tisha B'Av in their social media post. Most of you listening to the show right now had no idea what that holiday was until I just explained it to you. Had no idea. Zoran Mamdani knows exactly what he's doing. Look, I study my enemy. I bet you he studies his. I bet you he knew beforehand that he couldn't do anything to Netanyahu, but he said, I'm going to use him as a scapegoat anyway. I'm going to use it to get attention. And that video has millions of views. He's no dummy. He knows exactly what he is doing. And anybody who supports him, anybody who votes for him, anybody who cheers for him, anybody who supports or endorses or donates to or votes for any of his little socialist, communist, jihadi buddies, you're part of this. All the people who say, if it was the 1940s, I would have punched a Nazi. I would have hit. No, you wouldn't have. You would have done the same thing you're doing right now, which is voting for Mamdani, which is supporting socialists. You have done the exact same thing. I love that the quote-unquote anti-fascists, the people who are anti-fascists, are acting like such fascists right now. Speaking of people in Mamdani's little coalition, Mayor Katie Wilson taking a victory lap after the World Cup on public safety? You going to thank all those federal agents who helped out? Maybe. Yes, no, maybe so. Give you the answer when we come back. You'll listen to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, if you haven't seen my voter's guide yet, it is up at kvi.com. You can find it right there. If you text the word VOTE, V-O-T-E, to 206-421-5757, that's 206-421-5757, we will text it right over to you. How convenient is that? Saw this article from Como News. Everybody's talking about how great the World Cup was and how safe and secure everything was and how wonderful it was. So local and federal law enforcement agencies say they took 17 violent repeat offenders off the streets during the World Cup as part of Operation Red Card. Those arrested are facing a range of felony charges, including gun-related offenses, assault, robbery, extortion, and unlawful imprisonment. Officials with the FBI, Seattle Police Department, and other agencies said they had been preparing for the World Cup for years. Part of that planning involved identifying some of the area's most violent offenders and focusing on taking them into custody. Wait a second. You knew who they were in advance. Do you not remember the Seattle City Attorney's Office under Ann Davidson released a list of who these guys were years ago? In fact, before that, we had a report from, I think it was several business groups, talking about who these guys were before that. So you knew who these guys were, and you didn't do anything about it till the feds came to town? Is it the police aren't allowed to do their jobs? Is it they think there's no point in doing their jobs because prosecutors won't prosecute? But now we're excited we got 17. Okay. While I'm happy you got 17, do you remember that report? It said 100 prolific offenders were responsible for the majority of misdemeanors in our area. Why didn't you get more of them? And you're taking a victory lap on this. Wait a second. I thought we don't cooperate with federal partners. I thought we don't work with the big bad orange man. That's what Katie Wilson and Dow Constantine and Gurmay Zahalai and Bob Ferguson and Nick Brown and the whole bunch. That's what they've been saying. We don't cooperate with the orange man. Orange man bad. It's like the cooties rule when you're in preschool. Anything it touches has cooties, right? You have cooties. That has cooties. So now feds, because Trump's in charge of the feds, they have cooties. That's it. No working with the feds. So then I saw this. Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson put an op-ed in the Seattle Times. Seattle, the World Cup brought possibility. Let's build on it. She writes, I've never felt prouder of our city, and there is much we can learn from this success. You're right, Mayor Fivehead. You know what we can learn from this? Work with federal partners, and things might be safer. You can work with the FBI, you can work with the ATF, you can work with the Department of Homeland's. Silly me. You can't work. You're not allowed to work with the Department of Homeland Security. You're not allowed to work with ICE, baby. You're not allowed to do that. Hey, you remember how ICE was pulling over all those cars on the freeways like I-5 leading up to this? Remember our friend young Zach got trapped in traffic because of an ICE action on I-5 when he was coming here to the studio. She says, this is what it looks like when government delivers. Oh, you bet you know what it is. So you're saying working with law enforcement is part of government delivering? I thought you wanted to defund the police. I thought you wanted to abolish the police. I thought you wanted to abolish the prisons. I thought you wanted to get rid of all of them. Now you're talking about how great government is. From transportation to event logistics to public safety, city departments created a seamless experience for visitors, residents, and workers alike. Wasn't just the city. A lot of other people helped, like those federal agencies. They helped a lot. Also, didn't you guys get a whole bunch of money from the federal government for this? Didn't you get a whole bunch of money from FIFA for this? You didn't do it on your own. Isn't the left the ones who are always saying it takes a village? Takes a village, takes a village? I'm grateful to my fellow public servants who worked long hours to pull this off. Wait. Does that mean she didn't work long hours? Does that mean they worked long hours, but she didn't work long hours? She writes, it's time to discard the notion that Seattle is dying. The forces pushing that narrative, Ari Hoffman, never wanted Seattle to succeed. Stop. Time out. That is not true. Why did Eric Johnson make that video? You know what, Kevin? I've been talking about this for like a week and a half now. Time to reach out to Eric Johnson. Time to reach out to him after this. I think his context would be excellent after something like this. I will email him tonight and see if we can get him on the show. The man who created Seattle is Dying. The people who are in Seattle is Dying, including yours truly, were in it because we knew what Seattle was and we saw it being destroyed. Have things gotten better since the World Cup? Look, it's nice having people down on the waterfront, but I drive through the downtown streets these days and they're back to normal. You don't see all the red, white, and blue everywhere. You see the empty storefronts because they're not being hidden by crowds and signage anymore. It's very, very clear what's happening. The homeless encampments are coming back. You see the crime coming back. Literally, I had a friend of mine who's a construction worker today. He's a contractor. A job site was broken into for the second time. Cars were stolen. House was torn apart while people broke into it. And you're going to say, well, Ari, every city has crime. Yeah, not all of them have a mayor who turned off the safety cameras. And in fact, the police told my contractor friend that they can't follow up with the criminals. They can't follow them because the cameras are turned off. So, Katie Wilson wants to say Seattle isn't dying. You may have given it CPR and may have gotten a heartbeat, but now we're back to normal. We're back to normal. All those tents are coming back. I see them on 4th Avenue every day. You got rid of them. Now they're back. I see them in Georgetown. I see the RVs. I see everything else. I see all the addicts are wandering back to the health department, King County Department of Health on 4th Avenue. All of it's back. That's why Seattle's dying. You may have given it CPR. You may have given it a dose of adrenaline, but we see what's happening here. We don't want Seattle to fail. We want Seattle to succeed, which is why we call out the stupidity of turning off safety cameras, of defunding the police, of abolishing prisons, of claiming you're all about affordability and then taxing people up the wazoo. We see what you are doing, and we call it out. See, she can make claims like this because the international media is gone. And because the international media is gone, they're not going to see all this. They're not going to see all this. I got called to be on Fox Business this morning to talk about how you have people like Bob Ferguson destroying our state by pushing out the businesses. This is what the national conversation is about, how Seattle and Washington have become a cautionary tale.
Did anyone try and stop companies like Starbucks, for example, leaving the state and going to Tennessee? Because Starbucks warned them, don't do this.
A company as big as Starbucks, as politically connected as Starbucks, doesn't get up and leave overnight. It turns out Governor Bob Ferguson was warned by Starbucks in a formal letter, your tax hikes are going to hurt our business and any business that is headquartered in Washington state. And instead of actually addressing them, he signed the largest tax hike in Washington state history. Then when Starbucks asked for a meeting because Washington was considering its first income tax, Bob Ferguson blew them off until the company announced that they were expanding to Nashville, adding 2,000 jobs, laying off about the equal amount of jobs here in Seattle. And then they were building this over 100,000 square foot headquarters. Then Bob Ferguson wanted to meet with them. What was the goal of the meeting? To convince them that the taxes were a good thing, as opposed to actually hearing their concerns. And now we are losing a company, one of the ones which Seattle is known for.
So now that the tourists have left, we still have a 37% office vacancy rate in downtown Seattle, the highest in the U.S. Now that all the tourists left, we are still left with Starbucks leaving as well, tech companies laying off people, and they've been replaced by drug addicts on our streets. That's Katie Wilson's utopia. May have gotten a dose of adrenaline or a kickstart my heart or any of those things for the World Cup, and it was wonderful and it was great, but I said enjoy it while we have it because it ain't going to last. And you already see Seattle healing itself back to the socialist normal. Up next, my friends, are there candidates that can actually stop this insanity and actually get rid of these Democrat incumbents? One of them will be joining us next. You get to hear what he's all about. We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Windows and Doors for Every Home for sponsoring our Newsmaker Spotlight. So many of you have reached out about my voter's guide. And what you may have noticed up on KVI is that there are certain races where I have not recommended anybody, I have not endorsed anybody, and that's because I haven't made up my mind yet or done my research yet. Now, this next candidate I have gotten more emails about than any other candidate in the race. This next race I have gotten more emails about than any other race except for maybe the Supreme Court. And I said, well, if everybody's talking about this guy, let's have him on the show. Joining us now, candidate for the 8th Congressional District right here in Washington, Spencer Moline. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me, and appreciate the time to sit and chat a little bit about the campaign, why I'm running.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with this. Why is everybody telling me about you? Why do you think that is?
I mean, I think it goes back to the core principles of, the campaign. I'm just, a dad and a small businessman, and I'm, kind of fed up with the status quo and threw my name in the hat. And, that's been the base of the campaign. I am who I am. I got some really good advice from Jim Walsh when I first met him, and he's just, pulled me aside. He's like, hey man, just be you, be yourself. That's going to be your strongest, part of your platform. And I've continued to do that and speaking the truth, speak my mind. And, that's what has gotten me this far.
So why'd you decide to enter this race? Because politics sucks a lot of the time and it's boring.
Yeah.
And you get torn to shreds. Why would you want to get into this?
Well, I think it's important, honestly. And I've spent, the last couple of years, I'm a small business owner, so I have 3 restaurants in Leavenworth. And, the small business climate in Washington State isn't amazing. We have the highest 5-year small business mortality rate in the nation. 6 out of 10 small businesses will close after 5 years. And it's been a struggle. And right now, I feel like as far as the federal representation we have in the state, the 10 congressional representatives we have, nobody, really has the small business background. And I think that's a huge swing and miss for something so important. 99% of businesses in this country are small businesses, making up, 44% of the GDP. And I think we deserve a voice.
So restaurants in Leavenworth, you say, any of them
Correct.
serve beer or hot pretzels? Because then I might have been to them.
Yes on the beer and no on the pretzels.
Okay. All right. Then my family members have been to them. If they don't have the pretzels, I don't stop in, but I might make an exception for you. Okay.
We
So
may have to
work on that.
review the menus there.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So now, top 3 issues. You get into Congress. What do you want to do right out the gate?
Yeah, so, obviously we talked a little bit about the small business platform. Just knowing what what it takes to start from scratch. It's really, really hard to get started. And our first restaurant we opened, we didn't have a lot of funds. I started as a busboy when I was 15 years old at Ivor Salmon House and loved the industry. Worked with that company, which is a great company. Was at managing it at the end of the career my career with them there. And moved over to Leavenworth, and we wanted to start our first restaurant there. So we needed funding, right? So we met with a local bank and tried to pull the SBA into our camp to help with funding, and it was extremely difficult to get financing, and we ended up not going that route because it didn't make sense, and we just kind of took some personal loans to get started. But I think the SBA needs an overhaul. Capital is so important, just to, get started and pursue the American dream. And I think that's one area where I think we can make some changes. If you look at like the micro loan limit, right, it's $50,000 that hasn't, trended with inflation. So there's, quick, easy, fix that I think we can get implemented. And then another huge pillar, big reason why I live in Washington State and not Texas or Florida is our mountains and our public land. 82% of this district is public land. And, I started, mountaineering at a young age, climbing the volcanoes, and that kind of transitioned into more traditional rock climbing. We have 4 kids. I take them out backpacking, fishing. We love where we live, right? And our federal land is being grossly mismanaged, in my opinion. I go outside right now, and it's already smoky, and we're in July. Wildfires are a huge issue. especially for, east side of the mountains. We had Labor Mountain and Sugarloaf fires last year, burned 85,000 acres. We lost Blewett Pass for 16 days, which is, a huge highway that brings, people into Leavenworth. And there's, economic fallout from the gross mismanagement of our forests. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed. And, I think the left pretends like they have all the solutions, but they have this total hands-off approach. And that's, resulted in years and years of fuel buildup in our forests. And we need to, take action and start actively managing our lands.
Wow. A candidate who actually wants to do practical issues as opposed to talk about big national issues that they can't do anything about. I'm shocked. I'm pleasantly surprised. It's very, very refreshing. Spencer, if people want to support you, if they want to volunteer for you, if they want to donate to you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, MarineForCongress.com. You'll find all the information there. You can reach out to us, and we'll contact you and see how you can help.
Spencer Millian, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, including our good news headlines. Put a smile on your face heading into your evening commute. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our fluffy good news, I just want to say, is this the turning point or not? I want to know what you guys think. So we mentioned earlier in the show, but I want to revisit this a little bit. WNBA player Sophie Cunningham, a guard for the Indiana Fever, believes men should not play in women's sports, and she's not afraid to say it. According to Libby Emmons of the Post Millennial, this is what we need more of: prominent women athletes standing up for women and girl competitors. U.S. women's soccer star Megan Rapinoe won't do it, and Olympic gymnast Simone Biles won't do it, which makes Cunningham's comments in favor of truth and reality really stand out. Cunningham doesn't have to take issue with trans people to be able to stand up for women's rights. In an interview with ESPN, Cunningham said she will speak out to protect women's sports. She's in a unique position to know what that means. As a woman playing in a women's basketball league, she said, I get a lot of negative feedback about me hating trans, she said. And I'm like, I never once said that. I think I'm here to extend love, but I also think that love is truth, being honest, and I want to protect young girls in a locker room or young girls in a sport who shouldn't have to go against biological men. And of course, she's right. Men have no place on women's sports teams. And just looking at those fellas who join women's sports teams claiming they are female makes that clear. Women have been injured, lost opportunities, made to stand second or third place to male players. Cunningham also rejected the idea that her view on women's rights and protecting those rights in athletic competition could be used to pigeonhole her political views. She said, I'm very much in the middle. I agree with things on both sides, disagree with things on both sides. And that's all I've ever said about my political beliefs. But people love to assume. The Supreme Court backs up Cunningham. They recently ruled that states were permitted to uphold and protect the rights of women and girls by keeping men out of women's competition. And this isn't the first time Cunningham has spoken up. In March of 2022, she criticized NCAA swimming for allowing Leah, a.k.a. William Thomas, to compete against women at the collegiate level. Thomas, playing for UPenn, met University of Kentucky swimmer Riley Gaines in the pool, and Gaines spoke about the unfairness of swimming against a man, but also took public issue with the preferential treatment Thomas was given by the NCAA. They both came in fifth. Gaines was told the trophy would go to Thomas. Cunningham shared in the post, female athletes deserve so much better than this. Amid the backlash, she said, to my teammates, friends, family, supporters, and fans, you know that I stand with all people, especially my fellow athletes. I do not judge, but support all races, religions, sexual preferences, and gender equity. We all have a place in this world to compete, and I hope we are able to grant everyone that opportunity fairly. Now, mind you, I don't think this is going to get solved until a male athlete stands up and says something. Sorry, guys. I believe that's actually the case. I don't believe till somebody like LeBron James, somebody with the big name ID says something, that things will actually change. As much as I like what Sophie Cunningham said, I don't think things are going to change until somebody even bigger stands up. And unfortunately, people like Megan Rapinoe, Sue Bird, Simone Biles have all been on the other side of this. What, you guys worried about losing contracts? You worried about getting canceled? Learn something from Sophie Cunningham, who is at the height of her career in the WNBA. And let's be real what that actually means, height of the career in the WNBA. She's crossing over to pop culture, to be a pop culture icon. That stunt she did with the, what was it, MMA or boxing match the other night where she's the card girl carrying it around, that won her a lot of points. Kevin doesn't even know what I'm talking about. He watches that stuff. He has no clue. Yeah, she did that kind of stuff too. She's becoming a pop culture discussion as well. So I think we need more joining her, and I hope she's the leader behind this. Took guts to do that. Could lose endorsement deals. People could not sponsor her. But we need more people to do exactly that. Speaking of sports, by the way, Seahawks are going to be featured in HBO's Hard Knocks. This is the show where they follow a team through training camp. And they're going to be following the Seattle Seahawks for training camp as they prepare to defend their Super Bowl title. According to Bleacher Report, a new trailer for Hard Knocks training camp with the Seattle Seahawks provided a first look at the team's off-season ahead of the July 25th start of training camp. I thought this was last season. I thought it was going to be they show us last season. They taped it last year. They're going to have the show out, and training camp is starting now.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's the hook of it, man. Is
it's live. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah, you follow a team, and you're pretty much, you're not, I don't think it's up to date, but you're within, like the episode you're watching, typically once it gets going is like within a week or two.
Gotcha.
They used to do this in boxing way back when HBO had boxing. Speaking of the non-sports that no one cares about anymore that I care about, HBO's had a show called 24/7, and it was right when reality TV was just kind of hitting, and they would follow both fighters around, and they'd have 24/7 access. And so that thing was huge because the final episode would air the week of the fight
to promote the fight. I saw one of those one time. It was actually, there was a Jewish boxer who was keeping kosher and all that. I saw that one. And wasn't it the parody for April Fool's Day, one of those episodes where they talked about how Rocky won the Cold War? It was
maybe, yeah.
It was, I think I saw
trying to think of what boxer. I do know who you're talking about. He was he had a moment for a second.
He had a moment.
Yeah.
He didn't do much after that, but he had a moment. I think it was that show. But anyway, this is fascinating. You know, I love the Seahawks training camp. I've never been to a training game. I've been to a lot of the other games, but I've
been to one.
You've been to one? Was it fun? Was it more fun?
Cool. It was cool. It was a beautiful day for it, and it was great.
Is it like when you go to spring training for baseball where you're like, this isn't a real game, but it's kind of fun, but I don't know if I would do it again?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
No,
Okay.
I'd do it again, totally. It was
you
fun.
would?
Yeah, if
Okay.
I had, the time and all that stuff. Yeah, it was and they have a nice area where you sit, and
I wouldn't go back to spring training. So this I've watched from the water before. You can't see much on the water, but you can kind of see through the trees a little bit. And they used to do more on the water and with the docks and stuff. I sat out there one time. It was kind of cool, but I wasn't really in the camp. Maybe that's something to go see one time. I love the games. I'm not even the biggest football fan, but I love going to the games. I might actually watch this show. Maybe I'll tell my wife to check it out. Right now, she's watching the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader show. That one. She likes that one. I'm not going to say I don't like it because it makes me cry.
It's interesting because I don't know if there's a Hard Knocks curse or anything like that.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Like being on
curse.
the cover of the Sports Illustrated, you get injured and that kind of thing.
But I mean, the thing is what we just won our second Super Bowl. If we can't repeat it again this season, I mean, it's a difficult thing to do.
We almost did it last time.
I know.
Give the ball to Marshawn Lynch,
But
right, guys?
I don't think you could blame it on being on HBO. But I do know that a lot of NFL teams, and for the longest time, the Seahawks resisted it because I guess it's a real pain in the ass.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, you got the cameras following around. You have to wear the microphones. You can't really get a full practice in. I totally get that. I totally do. I've joked. We should have a reality show. We should do that. But then I realized they're going to be like following me to the bathroom and stuff. No, thank you. Plus, I don't know who would be interested in that. Well, my friends, that's going to about wrap it up for us today. We got the Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded coming on after this. So if you missed any part of the show, you get to hear the parts you may have missed, but it was all recorded today. We'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and more chances to win. You've been listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.